Welcome to our discussion on securing AI. Of course, agents will make an appearance. Welcome to a discussion, Ankur Shah.
Thanks, Anton. It's good to be here.
Definitely a fun conversation for these days because everybody seems to be either securing AI or securing AI agents. But how real is this stuff? For companies that seem to be steamrolled by ransomware, do we really want to tell them about agents or should they keep dealing with the past? What's your take on this?
Yeah, look, we've been at it for over a year now, really talking to hundreds of customers, all sizes and shapes and industry verticals. Something changed earlier in the year. Better part of the last year's conversation was where the customers were doing what I call the sort of the 1.0 AI application, simple chatbot, coding
Mhm.
copilots, rack systems, and use an LLM model to do a conversational summarization, etc. What changed earlier in the year is that, for the last 6 months, I've talked to over 100 customers. I'm yet to talk to anybody who doesn't say that agents are the biggest thing that they're betting on. Specifically, what they are saying and what they're telling us is, look, they are trying to reimagine existing applications, build new applications where, by and large, what used to be the rules-based business logic layer will be relegated or delegated to reasoning models. So
Yep.
humans will give a goal or a task, which will then be carried out instead of software by these models as long as they have access to tools, etc. Now, to your point, a lot of customers are talking about this. Have I seen a lot of shipping at scale production agents? Not yet, but I think that's coming.
Yes. Oh, that's a fair point. And I think that my former colleagues, and of course, this moniker I reserve to my former colleagues from Gartner specifically, tend to think that there would be a decent failure rate as people experiment with AI. But ultimately, we will have successful enterprise agent implementation. We will have consumer grade agents. And of course, this would require security. They would be in prod, they would be in production, they wouldn't just be experiments and pilots. So if somebody wakes you up at 3 a.m. and says, give me the top three threats that my agent implementation should be secured against. What are your top three agentic threats? And please don't pick at any kind of OWASP or CSA resources because I'm curious about what's your take on the top three agentic threats.
Look, before I go specifically into the agentic threats, I think it's important to understand where the future is going to be. Like the bull case is just about every application is going to get rewritten using agents, and new applications will get built, and anybody with any knowledge over English or natural language can build and consume these apps. The bear case is, of course, these agents are non-deterministic, so can they actually, build business applications or not? Certainly a bear case, although I'd argue that if we can have AI do autonomous driving where there's a life and death situation, of course they can write business rules. So, assuming the bull case, I think it's important to recognize that the traditional business logic software layer is going to be all but gone and replaced with reasoning models. In which case, focusing on traditional application security vulnerability is not going to be very useful. Instead, what
Mhm.
enterprises have to start thinking about is agentic security, and specifically the threats that they have to worry about. These agents are based on reasoning models or LLMs, so they're going to be prone to language-based attacks like prompt injection and jailbreak, direct and indirect. They have unfettered access to the data, read-write access to the data, and that means you're going to see data leakage in the best case, but mass data exfiltration in the worst case. It's going to be easier than ever before for somebody to exploit these agents to do select star dot star or delete or rf minus rf star dot star. That's another big risk. Toxicity, obviously harmful content,
Yeah, of course.
CBRN stuff that we are all familiar with. But in addition to that, in our own testing with real world applications, we have found tool manipulation where the agents are told to
Uh-huh.
invoke a malicious tool, reconnaissance, excessive agencies. Well, the tools now have unfettered access, the one that I talked about. So at the end of the day, Anton, like, look, you and I have been in security for many years. At the end of the day, it's all about identities and data and etc. How malicious actors will capitalize and exploit these systems is going to be very different. And a big part of obviously what we do is we're building good AI or good agents because that's the only way to secure this, not in a traditional way.
I want to pull on a few threads from this, and I think
Yeah.
one is the demise of AppSec. I have used in my practice, I've seen the model where to secure an agent or an AI application, you have to secure infrastructure, application, data, and the model. But
Right.
so like what sometimes we call it MAID, model application infrastructure data. But the weird part is I've seen people who over pivot to model and they obsess about the model stack. They focus on prompt injection and then they suffer from the AppSec, the classic AppSec that comes and bites them because it kind of isn't dead. It's just like sitting there in the background and you don't pay any attention to it. So can you just substantiate that the AppSec would truly die? Like, why would be the agentic application of 2027 won't be vulnerable to SQL injection? Like,
Yeah.
why would it be gone? Where would it go?
Yeah. I think that there is one point that I couldn't agree more, right? Like since the big early days, we don't talk about model security per se. I mean, models, are going to become commodity, if not already. The idea of securing a model or a black box kind of seems a little silly. I understand. So a lot of the focus that we have is around what we call AI applications or agentic AI application, if that
Mhm.
makes sense, right? Because that, to your point, encompasses the web layer where there is a chat interface, there is the model layer, there is the infrastructure layer, there's the data layer, there's the identity layer. So, a lot of customers, enterprises that we talk to, they like us to talk about applications, not so much model, because customers can swap out the model. To your second point, so I think that's still really important. I think that's the new thing that every enterprise and CISOs will have to focus on. To your point about traditional application security like SQL injection, etc., look, there is a long tail of the world doesn't change overnight as much as Silicon Valley likes to think. It's going to take a while before all the
Yeah.
old software stack gets replaced. The central point I'm trying to make is that if the business logic layer, where the software code was written, which was prone to SQL injection, if that's all gone and replaced with LLM models, because remember, the reasoning used to be done by the developer who wrote a if then else or a for loop.
Yes, yes,
That
yes,
thing is
yes.
gone and replaced by LLMs. So then what SQL injection or what OWASP top 10 are you really worried about if that layer goes away? Now, again, the world doesn't change overnight. It's going to take a while.
Yes.
But that's kind of the thinking. But I think the fundamentally, once again, where I agree with you is that customers have to think about AI application security, not so much model security.
Yes, and I think that it's the time to change is an excellent point because of course all sorts of connective tissue, all sorts of before we have MCP, we can have the classic something called an API call. It's well poorly formed. I mean, I'm not an AppSec person, so I don't want to barge on your turf. You know AppSec like dramatically better than I do, but I'm kind of puzzled about that. If we have COBOL in 2020s, will we have SQL injection in 2040s? I don't know. Like one thing that I learned in my Gartner days is the past tends to come and bite us in the worst possible way in cybersecurity. And I don't mean the mainframes and Windows 2003, but I think that SQL injection is not the dark past; it's the present for many. So I'm kind of curious whether in five
Yeah.
years it would really be gone, or would be like hiding in little dark corners of AI security. So that's a
Yeah,
that's a fun one to just.
it's a good point. I mean, actually, as a matter of fact, we've discovered a technique, we call it lava, where SQL injection meets prompt injection. What do I mean by
Cool.
that?
Sounds like fun.
Where look, if there is a natural language interface, a chatbot or a conversational UI to an agent, you can literally write or type anything. Well, what if you do a select star? What if you do a
Mm.
classic content security policies that are missing in a web application? So look, there is still a web app layer to a chatbot. So the traditional cross-site
Yeah.
scripting, SQL injections are obviously relevant to the extent that the human
Yes.
is still typing on a web layer that is a chatbot. But the case we're making is that combined with natural language is a deadly combo. Because
Oh
if
God,
we
yes.
can
That
exploit
I
that,
fully agree.
then
Yeah, fully on board here. Yes.
100%. Because I can hide that SQL injection behind an image, behind a large prompt, and get the chatbot to extract a whole bunch of data. So I think the short answer is yes, absolutely. It's just that now the malicious actors have new tools in the tool bag to do the same thing.
Yep, yep. What about data security? Do you feel like it's going to get a revival as well? Because people talk about AI governance and data governance, and I think these are boring topics from the 1980s. But ultimately, a lot of AI security seem to be also related to data governance and data security. What's your response to these concerns that
Yeah.
kind of came back from a dark past and now they haunt us in our AI future?
Yeah. Look, Anton, as you know, in our business, as things change, they remain the same. Used to be data governance, then there was DLP, and now all of a sudden there is DSPM. It's the same thing recycled.
Right.
And look, this is as somebody who ran CNAP and cloud security at Palo Alto, acquired a company in data security or DSPM. Look, there is sprawl of data. I think there is some validity to having proper data governance and hygiene and all that stuff. But the idea that like somehow in this AI age, we're going to somehow rein it in and tell people what data that goes into
Mhm.
your AI for training is quite honestly silly. Like AI is a black hole that's going to suck every data that's out there. And the more guards you have, the worse outcome you're going to have in this process, right? So what's the right answer? Like how do we think about it from
Yes.
an AI application security perspective? Like, look, to the extent that you can maintain good data hygiene, please do so. I think it's a unsolvable problem. I think it's not going to get
Thank
solved.
you for this. This is beautiful. You're right.
100,
It is not solvable. It
it
hasn't
is
been
not
solved.
solvable.
People who assume that it will get solved any day now are wrong. Exactly.
Yeah. So
Thank
the
you.
approach that we took is quite simple, actually. So we have a two product with Ascend AI and Red Teaming. What we do is our agents will do reconnaissance and all kinds of attack to find if there is sensitive data trained in AI. That's what we focus on. So at least
Yes.
you know if something slipped through the cracks. That's one. And the second thing is that we've got guardrails for all kinds of AI-based guardrails for PII and HIPAA and PCI, etc. That's your final backstop. So if mistakes were made, we will ensure that we block it so the users never see that data. We believe
Yep.
that's the right approach. That way, the CISOs can sleep at night versus endlessly worrying about having million database rows with sensitive data. Like, hello, databases are supposed to have sensitive records. So
Yep.
like somehow showing that is not that important. Having guardrails where a malicious actor is not using AI as the front end to extract that data is more important. And that's where, we are encouraging a lot of customers to focus on, quite honestly.
Yep, that makes sense. And I think that I like your answer. I love your answer because I unfortunately, in many cases, people just double down on old advice, but the
Yeah.
old advice never took. Large enterprises never took on the, oh yeah, let's classify the data. Well, we haven't in the past 50 years. Why do you think we'll do it this year? No, sorry, it does not gonna fly. But I think your
Yeah.
answer makes more sense.
Yeah. And look, I mean, we've done a lot of these tests already, the AI red teaming or pen testing that we have. And we've tested dozens of these AI systems. And look, I mean, we've discovered a lot of things. But one of the most shocking revelations has been about in 9% of the cases, we have found that customers don't have any PII guardrails, period, in these AI and
Yep.
agentic systems. So it's
Yep.
super important
And
to
I
have
think
those guardrails to safeguard against sensitive data as your final backstop.
so in some of this is quite easy to conceptualize and have like a cocktail conversation about securing AI, but in other cases, practically building a tool that secures agentic AI, secures applications and agents is quite hard. So you managed to build one. So how does yours work and what does it do specifically?
Yeah, so like, look, at RSC, we launched when we came out of the gate, we launched two products, Ascend AI and Defend AI. At Black Hat, we're adding agentic security capability across both products. Let me tell you specifically what they do. So we have a lot of customers right now who have built a full-blown agents, and they want the ability to do automated testing. Now we can
Hmm.
do traditional LLM evasion testing, etc. We can do the toxicity and data leakage. But with this agentic system who have access to tools and other systems of record, it is incredibly hard to do an automated testing and really find out if these agents can go rogue. So we've added that capability. And basically, at the heart of the
Hard though. That's
that
really
is really
hard.
hard.
That
So
is hard.
basically,
I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. So like, look, the way we do it is we've built multiple agents because again, you can only secure agents with agents. We have a discovery agents where given a customer system prompt and certain basic information about the app, we'll do reconnaissance. We'll discover all tools, all databases, everything that the agent has access to.
hmm.
And then we have several attack categories, attack techniques. Then there are attack agent takes over. and goes against your application specifically. So if you're building in a banking agent, it's going to be very targeted banking agent based attack to find out if we can manipulate the agents into doing, mass data exfiltration and other types of attacks. So really difficult problem, but we've been at it for 6 months. That's why we're really excited about this launch. And then the second product is on Defend AI, which is the guardrail, because the customers will say, okay, well, thanks for telling me. I've got all kinds of problems in my agent. What can I do about it? Well, what you can do is
Yeah.
have agentic guardrails. So for the same attacks that we use to do reconnaissance, tool manipulation, tool vulnerability discovery, what we call autonomous chaos, which is where agents have unfettered access to the system,
Okay.
we provide
Yeah.
guardrails against that. And we are the only technology solution that will give you a complete trace. So when a human gives a goal or a task, agents carry out this task across multiple dialogues between each others, between the tool,
Yep.
ultimately to get the job done. We collect the entire trace. Everything that goes on, including what happens in the AI reasoning model, ultimately to the end goal, which could be good or bad if malicious actors are exploiting that. So we collect the traces. We have built then our AI engine that can, with high degree accuracy, detect if there was a vulnerability and then block it. So really excited about these two products, these two agents, attack agent and defend agent. Can't wait to put this in hands of the customer. Some of them have been trying this in beta for quite some time.
Let me pull on one item because this obviously, actually, let me pull on two things. First, I want to explore a little bit on the testing side because testing here is difficult, and AI red teaming covers the classic red teaming and a lot of red teaming about like trying to cheat the model, deceive the application. So that's one item that I want to explore. But also, before we go there, I want to touch on the point you made, which I kind of gently disagree with. You said that you can only secure agents with agents. What about the strict output control? If I prevent my agent from ever doing X, if it doesn't have the way to do X, then I am secure from X, right? I can do lock listing and allow listing as well. Like, why wouldn't that work?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, one of the central cases that we have made repeatedly is that the pre AI era rule based systems are dead. There is no way to secure AI application using traditional allow, block, regex pattern. What you have to build at the heart of the technology is highly fine-tuned models that are trained on security and safety data sets. To give you an example, you can give me an SSN number, we can have a regex. I can do a base 64 version of that, or I can write it in letters and it'll evade every check that you have. Versus if you have a fine-tuned model, you can do everything you want. We will be able to detect and block it. So I think that's one of the reasons. Stuff like prompt injection, you can detect it with regular systems. Same thing with toxicity. So a big part of the craftsmanship in products that Straiker have built is just this fine-tuning models. We call it medley of experts. Like we're using a bunch of 7B, 12B models. That has to be accurate. So right now we are over 99% accuracy, beating frontier models, sub half a second latency.
Oh,
It
wow.
has to be
That's
cost effective
legit.
as well.
Wow.
It is
Yeah.
really hard. And that's why we had to pick smaller models, because if we had used frontier models, they would be accurate, but they'd be slower and more expensive for us. And look, we don't have OpenAI's money, so I can't run a 100 GPU cluster. So how can we do it? I think that's at the heart of Striker's technology is that thing, highly fine-tuned model that can attack and the ones that can defend.
So to conclude, I want to explore the relative importance of this compared to the concerns. And sometimes you see a legacy enterprise that's exploring AI, exploring AI agents, and they have a lot of issues from data security to more classic issues like malware. And we show up and say, hey, you got to pay attention to AI security now. And also you got to pay attention to agent security also in the short term. How do you justify it? How do you help CISOs who are listening to this rebalance or maybe properly prioritize this? Because sometimes the past comes and they have to deal with that. How do you make them pay attention to AI security today?
Look, I feel for our CISO community, right? Like they've got endless list of priorities. They've got endpoints, cloud, identity, SOC transformation, zero trust, and now all of a sudden there's a new thing, AI. I'll make the case why AI security ought to be number one. Look, the simplest thing is, what is the enterprise's number one priority at this point? AI, and that by extension, AI security ought to be number one. But let me make a more nuanced case here. Look, a few years from now, and we don't know if it is 2 or 5 or 10 years from now, right? If bulk of your traffic, bulk of your applications that you build as an enterprise is going to have AI or agents in it,
Yes.
it's got to be more important than AppSec. If a few years from now, your computers, your employees' computers will be used by agents for computer use, um, do you think EDR, XDR becomes a more priority or securing laptops
Okay.
from agents become a priority?
Excellent.
Let's talk
That's
about
an excellent point. Yes.
Let's talk about zero trust. Right now, you have legacy firewall technology companies who are focusing on employee traffic going to public internet. If all employee traffic going to public internet is going to be AI based, do you think in zero trust era, your priority is traditional firewall technologies or AI security? So all of this combined represents all of cybersecurity's $250 billion market opportunity. I think CISOs, when they go up to the board, they ought to focus on the most important thing that's driving and that's going to propel the enterprise to the future, and that's AI. And that's the reason why AI security has got to be the number one priority because it's going to be the number one threat vector.
Yes, and I think I like that. And I think that if you extrapolate even for a short term, like you said, 2 years, 3 years, even today, I sometimes, from a previous disruption, the cloud disruption, I have people who double down on endpoint security, and I say, what about microservices? And they just look at me with big eyes, and it's like, oh, we didn't think about that. So I think your argument works really well for the AI future when they say, well, I'm going to focus on infrastructure security, and I'm going to do endpoint, and I'm going to do network, and I'm going to do this and then maybe do AppSec, and you tell them, hey, some of this may matter, but a lot of this would be very different. So to continue with that theme, it sounds like while I may disagree that AI is the number one priority, I think that convincing a security leader that AI should be on the list of priorities must happen today, because in a few years, it would be essentially too late. A lot of things around them would change, and starting from scratch would not be an option. So I kind of like this arguments you presented to put it on the list. And if people are still doing antivirus updates and firewall rule management as their priorities, AI security has to come up. Frankly, some people haven't discovered cloud yet, but AI would make itself visible and known to them. And if they miss the chance, they're in trouble.
I could totally agree to that. As much as I'd like it to be number one, I totally recognize that CISOs have a lot of things to do. I think the bigger piece is that it's a great conversation to start having with board. If you don't have a mindset on how you're going to allow safe and secure adoption of AI within the enterprise, you're not going to look very good for too long if all you talk about is traditional software vulnerability budgets, insecurity. So I think it's got to be a priority somewhere.
That makes sense. And I think that let's continue our work convincing the security leaders that they should pay attention to AI security today rather than wait for for bigger changes to their business and bigger changes to threat actors. Thank you very much for your views, of course, for building great products as well.
Thanks, Anton. I really enjoyed this conversation.